So episode 12 of God of High School. Before I even get into any of the changes from the webtoon, I just want to say that this was really bad. It was a super poor adaptation, and what started out as something that had the potential to be a big shonen for years to come with the first couple episodes quickly turned to what many people see as a one and done anime. And especially with the creator writing an original ending for this season, it really seems like we won't be getting any more God of High School anime in the future. So getting into the episode, it covered three major parts, starting with Ilpyo vs Jigal, then Mandyok vs Jason, and ending with the first part of the Capital Team vs Jigal. And out of these three major parts, the anime only did one of them justice, which was the smallest part being Mandyok vs Jason. Keep in mind, I understand it's just one episode, but the two things that were adapted so terribly have been built up to for the entire series and are essentially the climax for this first section of the story. Specifically, the Capital Team vs Jigal fight was just really bad. It didn't live up to the webtoon's potential at all, and it also skipped all of the things that made it a special fight. Quite frankly, God of High School is quickly becoming my least favorite adaptation of anything I've ever seen. Let's just get into God of High School episode 12, Fox/God, covering chapters 94 through 108. I'm gonna go a little out of order here and talk about the Capital Team versus Jigal fight first, because this is just one of the worst changes that has ever been made in media. I don't even mean just the God of High School series, this is just probably one of the worst changes I've ever seen. So I just want to explain how it all went down in the webtoon so you can see just how bad this episode was with adapting this. Just to add some context for the anime onlys, I'm gonna start explaining from as soon as everyone falls down into the temple area, and this is the place where Mujin teleported everyone in the anime. So starting with chapter 99, everyone falls down into the temple area, and during the fall, Mori and Jigal are actually together. They have a quick little clash as they're falling, but they get separated as they strike each other and just knock each other far apart. Then once everyone gets down, there are two groups, one with the Capital Team and Ilpyo, and the second with Team Jigal. And as soon as they get down, it's on site with Jigal. Jigal instantly kills his teammate, stealing his float chariot, and that's just the end of him. Jigal isn't playing games anymore, he just wants his key, he wants to be done with this. And this scene of Jigal killing his teammates was completely removed from the anime, and besides just Jigal killing his teammates, the rest of his teammates just weren't in the episode. There's no explanation as to why they're gone, not even like they retconned as to something happened to them that prevented them from being with Jigal. They're just flat out gone for absolutely no reason. And then we get to chapter 100, and for the anime onlys, this is the beginning of the fight between the Capital Team and Jigal's team. It's the same fight from the anime, but in the webtoon it's actually a good fight and involves more people than just Mori. So before the real fight starts, we have Bora who comes to see the Capital Team. She says that Jigal's gone crazy, killed her teammate, and that she's basically running away from him to them. So after hearing the news, Mori decides to go face Jigal one-on-one, while Daiwi, Mira, and now Bora are just kind of chilling. So when Mori goes to see Jigal, we have some similar story beats in the anime, like how Jigal is sitting on the same statue, but the actual fight starts and it's just so much better than it was in the anime. Off rip, Mori sees that Jigal's teammate is dead on the ground, and he says he's finally gonna go serious. Then he uses his limiter remover ×2, and even though people don't really like the comparisons with Dragon Ball, the best way to explain this is it's almost like a Kaioken, at least in terms of what it does, because it buffs Mori's power level, but it also does significant damage on his body. So he uses the limiter removal ×2, doubling his power level to 26, and this is the first time where it seems like Mori truly has the intent to kill in a fight. He instantly blitzes Jigal, standing behind him, telling him to take it seriously, and this is just pure badassery out of Mori. We love to see this out of Mori. I like how he's a lot more serious in the webtoon here than he was in the anime, and after giving Jigal this warning, he just starts bodying him. Then Jigal even starts using his chariot, but Mori is still punching him repeatedly, but things were going a bit too easy for Mori. He starts punching and kicking Jigal, and he seemingly won the fight, knocking Jigal out. But as soon as he won, Jigal grabs onto Mori's ankle and blows up, revealing himself to just be a doppelganger, and he accomplished this by using the chariot that Jigal absorbed a couple episodes ago. And right as this explosion happened, Bora revealed her true intentions and started fighting Mira, showing that everything was a setup from the beginning. And the chapter closes with Mira about to seemingly get decapitated by one of Bora's attacks. Then chapter 101 opens and has one of the coolest mini fights and just really amazing art in general. So the chapter opens up with Daiwi saving Mira. It's when Bora was about to break Mira's skull and Daiwi just easily stops her knee. And then he goes on to just punch the life out of Bora, and another really cool panel. And again, I just really liked the art here, and it was really just missed potential from the anime because they completely cut this part out and we won't see it in the next episode either. And after this, Bora and Daiwi just start fighting a bit, and then we get two more really cool reveals. The first is Bora's national treasure. It's shown that she has some nunchuck national treasure which also can transform into a bow staff. And then the second, even bigger reveal is the long-awaited full reveal of Daiwi's Chariot Keite. We get to see its form as kind of like this dog-like thing, and we see how it's water-based, while in the anime all we really got to see was just water coming off of his hands, and it's really just disappointing that this didn't make it into the show. After their reveals, Daiwi and Bora continue their fight, and then Daiwi takes things up one level by infusing his blue dragon's technique with the water of Heite, and after using this technique he one-shots Bora. This was just a really cool other thing that they added, because Daiwi's blue dragon's technique has typically just been a martial art, and now he's infusing it with his chariot, just buffing it, making it even more powerful than it already was. And you're probably thinking, wow, that's a lot more love for Daiwi and the side characters than it was in the anime. Well, yeah, it is, but then we go into chapter 102 and we get even more care and attention for Daiwi. So right after he defeats Bora, Jigal shows up and uses a perfect copy technique, making 100 clones of himself to attack Daiwi when he's still tired and recovering after his fight with Bora. This puts Daiwi in a really tricky situation, primarily because he's already using his chariot to heal the nurses and to also heal Ilpyo and Sungha. He's also using his chariot to levitate them and send them back up to the surface. So now he has to balance his chariot as well as his stamina in the fight, and also on top of that using his chariot in both the fight against the Jigal copies and also to help levitate his friends. And now he's suddenly in a situation where if he runs out of stamina or loses the fight, everyone that he's levitating is gonna fall to the ground and probably die, or at least get seriously injured. Even though all these constraints are put on him, he's doing a really good job and even beat around 60 of the clones by himself, but he's getting super fatigued and overwhelmed. Then finally, when it looks like all hope is lost for Daiwi, Mori reappears, saving him from one final bite by catching one of the teeth. And can I just say, this is another super just pretty panel, and I really think that the anime just made a lot of mistakes. With Mori's arrival, chapter 103 is all about Mori and Daiwi teaming up to defeat all of the Jigal clones. We get two iconic panels at the very end of the battle. The first is with Mori and Daiwi side by side once again, and this time they're facing off against the real Jigal. The second is with Mori and Daiwi back to back, with Daiwi facing the rest of the clones by himself and Mori facing the real enemy. After the standoff, Mori and Jigal start fighting and it goes into chapter 104. The two of them have a really entertaining and flashy fight, but this part of the battle isn't anything too insane, as it's clear that even though Mori is putting up a fight, he's still not on Jigal's level yet. But everything changes with the conclusion of the chapter when Jigal sees that Mori has the key, since the key kind of gets attracted to something and leaps out of Mori's pocket. And following this stuff with the key, in chapter 105, everything gets a lot more serious, and Jigal and Mori are now both desperately trying to get a hold of the key. At this point, Jigal has had enough of it and just went full power, doing a partial transformation, and he's just destroying Mori at this point. It's really not even close at all. Jigal is just constantly pushing Mori towards the brink of death, but Mori maintains a solid grip on the key, refusing to let go. So we just see Mori just getting battered and punched and kicked and launched and just spikes flying through him, but he will not let go of the key. And then Jigal made the worst mistake of his life. He can do whatever he wants to Mori, but Mori's not the type of character who won't react when you threaten his friends. And Jigal threatens to kill Daiwi and eat him after he passes out. But Mori dashes, saving Daiwi at the last second, and then we get a partial transformation from Mori. He just used his limiter removal ×8 and no pain techniques, buffing himself ridiculously. So presumably his power level should be 8 times what it was at the beginning of the fight, but this was also a really big sacrifice for Mori. He's gonna have a super long recovery time after the fight, and he's likely gonna lose the ability to even move for a while after it. And after this transformation, Mori really just destroyed Jigal, and we got arguably some of the coolest panels in God of High School so far. Everything is almost completely monochromatic, and Mori just destroys Jigal. The artwork here is just so perfect. You see how it's all black and white, but you have these neon bars behind, just adding some cool design. And we also see a light tint to Jigal's hair. It's just really good paneling, and again, I feel like the anime really could have done something with this besides just not showing the fight at all pretty much. The fight between Mori and Jigal continues in chapter 106, and it's just as intense even though it goes back to the normal art style. And we see Mori's body and it's just falling apart at this point with the 8 times limiter removal, and on top of that his body is just full of holes from Jigal's shark teeth. But Mori keeps pushing through. As Mori's standing there facing off against Jigal, he takes the will of all of his friends for the remainder of the fight, and Jigal sees a bit of Ilpyo in Mori and gets even more angry seeing him stand defiant against him. His first attack is for Daiwi, and he uses the Fist of the Black Turtle technique. Then his next attack is for Mira, and he uses a Moonlight Bare Hand Slash. His third attack uses Practical Tachyon and is both for Sungha and Sungyeon. Then his final attack uses Samsu Tachyon, and this is of course for Ilpyo. And this attack seemingly defeats Jigal. But right after this attack, Mori's body is completely done, and he passes out with all the pain and damage that he's taken. Then chapter 107 serves as a bit of a break and a mini conclusion before the final battle. It's really nice seeing scenes like this, especially of the 3 together after such an intense battle. And all of this has led up to chapter 108, where Jigal transformed just like he did in the anime. There's still a chance that we might get to see some bits and pieces of the fight in the webtoon here, since the actual final battle is pretty short in the webtoon in comparison to all of this, but it's very unlikely since Jigal already transformed, so none of the competitors should be able to keep up with him in their current forms, and honestly, I'm not expecting any of this to be covered, so I'm really just disappointed. For the anime onlys, I encourage you, it's fine to keep enjoying the show, but I really recommend that you read the webtoon to get a better and just fuller experience. This section of the webtoon truly had so much potential to maybe turn the series around and get more people to love it, but they really just screwed it up because it was so rushed and they skipped everything that made this show unique. Now going back a couple chapters to 94, I'm gonna go over Ilpyo versus Jigal in the webtoon. The first difference is that Ilpyo versus Jigal was an actual match within the tournament, and it's a really fun and entertaining fight in the webtoon. At first they're clashing a lot and the fight seems pretty even, then Ilpyo starts to get the upper hand against Jigal. And after this, Ilpyo just starts bodying him. Jigal's not knocked out yet, but he's getting ragdolled and Ilpyo is letting all of his anger out on him. The fight rolls into chapter 95 and just gets better as it progresses. The next part of the fight is done so much better in the webtoon. Ilpyo is still punching and kicking Jigal, then Ilpyo's hand gets temporarily stuck in Jigal, and Jigal is able to absorb around half of his Chariok. After this, the fight just keeps getting more interesting, and Jigal has the big reveal that he has everyone's Chariok that he's killed. So Jigal sends all of these monstrous Charioks at Ilpyo, and Ilpyo just takes them all out one by one. But in the anime, all the monsters were just generic gray blobs. And this is the one change that really makes no sense to me. It's like, why would you take something that's interesting and just make it less interesting for literally no reason? It would have been so easy for them to just have all the Chariok monsters like they did in the webtoon, but the anime just, I guess, wanted to save time, or maybe they just didn't read or care that this happened in the webtoon. So to me, this change was just super unnecessary, because you would have still gotten the same point across like we did in the anime with Ilpyo killing all of the gray things, but it would just make a lot more sense and be a lot more impactful if they changed it. Moving on to chapter 96, the fight continues, and here it just gets more gritty and emotional. Ilpyo completely loses his Chariot, but with his martial arts alone, he's able to hold his own against all of Jigal's Chariots, which he's just spamming at this point only for them to get one-shotted by Ilpyo. Then towards the latter end of the fight, Jigal tries to injure Ilpyo in the same way that he broke Sungyeon's legs a few years back. This reinvigorates Ilpyo's will to fight, and now he's able to go all out against Jigal once again. And lastly, chapter 97 covers the finale to the fight between Ilpyo and Jigal, as well as the aftermath of the fight. The fight has a really creative end, and Ilpyo is almost at his limit by this point in the fight. With his back against the ropes, he does one final round kick, but Jigal seemingly easily dodges it. But he wasn't aiming for him, he actually kicked the ropes behind him and uses this to charge up a reverse kick, hitting Jigal, knocking him out and winning the fight. But as soon as the fight ends, stuff really starts going crazy. Jigal gets up and immediately rips the announcer's arm off, and then he tries to kill Ilpyo right after. And the chapter closes with both Mandyuk and Mujin trying to convince him to join their respective sides. Then moving on to chapter 98, the main takeaways of the chapter are Jason and Mujin. Jason puts a bubble around the arena, protecting it from Mandyuk's swords. Then amidst all of the chaos, Mujin puts a giant hole in the ground, sending all of the major players to the temple below the arena, which led into all of the stuff between the Capital Team versus Team Jigal that I discussed earlier in the video. And as for all the Mandyuk Jason stuff, all of that was primarily the same in both adaptions, so I don't really need to go over that here. So as saying, I'm really just disappointed. I feel like with all of the great source material that was covered in this section of the webtoon, the anime could have been a lot better. And on more of a personal level, when I first read God of High School, I really thought it had potential to be like the next Naruto, Dragon Ball, even One Piece, or at least something of a similar caliber, because if they paced it better and just slowed things down, this anime would probably be looked at as one of the greatest of all times. Personally, I think they could have ended the anime. Personally, I think that episode 13 should have ended with Mori versus Daiwi as just the finale to this season, and then the next season should have been around like a 26 episode season covering the rest of everything we're getting now. But that's just my take. I think it would have been a lot better and it would have appeased a lot more fans. That's it for the video. If you love God of High School or have any questions or suggestions about this episode, leave it in the comments. And if you want to stay up to date with everything God of High School and all my future content, make sure to like and subscribe.